Omm Sety, aka Dorothy Eady. She was an Englishwoman who, after a near-death experience, could remember a previous life in Egypt. Omm Sety, which is what she became known as, remembered a life in a temple in Abydos. Her detailed knowledge of ancient Egyptian customs and the layout of the buildings was truly impressive, and she is reputed to have, on several occasions, assisted Egyptologists with some very impressive findings. Later in life, Omm Sety chose to live in Egypt, close to the temple she remembered so fondly. The temple was erected by Sety I in Abydos, and here is a little map of the temple, which I took the photo when I was in Abydos. And this is a model at the entrance to the temple, and you can see that it's quite a large area, but the entrance, the walkway up, is from the right-hand side, and you go up, and then when you make all the way through, at the very back is the Osirian, and we will come to that shortly. So, back to Omm Sety, or Dorothy Eady. Her kind nature and willingness to talk to people made her very popular amongst the visitors to her temple. So quite often people would go there just to meet her. She did a lot of work there, and the temple archives have a lot of the stuff that she wrote about the temple. She loved cats, and she had several cats in her home, and she often had dreams of her previous life, and she kept a journal of the dreams. One of her claims regarding the temple, or what was behind the temple, the Osirian, was contrary to what the Egyptologists believe, since they consider it to be the remains of the cenotaph of the actual temple. But she said that it was never built by Sety at all, but it dates back to a much earlier epoch. She also said that the Great Sphinx of Giza was around much longer, and way before the date given by the Egyptologists. They gave a date of circa 2500 BCE. So what she was saying about those two is actually very, very similar to what I've seen in my dream regressions and what I've been saying as well. There are other similarities. I too am of English origin. I didn't, however, have a near-death experience in order to remember, that I know of actually. But I have remembered my dream regressions all my life. And it's interesting because it's like the dreams bring lost memories to the surface. And she too had dreams that were like that she had the dream and it was like a memory of her past life. So this too is very similar. I too have dreamed of Egypt. In my past life, I spent time in ancient Egypt, long before the deluge, through to the time of Akhenaten. So throughout my dream regressions, I've seen considerable change to Kem, or ancient Egypt, during that time. My timeline puts my death in Egypt before her birth. So I transitioned during the era of Akhenaten in about 1335 BCE, and she would have lived her past life in the era of Sety I, which just shortly after that, in about 1300 BCE. So we did not overlap. During my visit to Abydos recently, I too concluded that the Osirian was not a dynastic building, but came from the much earlier period of my people. To me, it was the lowest level of a multi-story building the design of which I've seen many times in my dream regressions. The Sphinx temple is also of the same basic design that I've seen before. As, of course, I too have dreams of the Sphinx, and I too put it in a much earlier time frame. So if you want to find out about that, I've done some very detailed episodes on this. Back to Omm Sety. She led the Egyptologists to various locations to dig for things that they would not otherwise have found. I too, based on my dreams, have found things in Egypt. I found some organic matter in the Serapeum. And I found what I believe to be the location of a yellow pyramid obelisk on Giza. I also found a stone finger in Tanis, by accident, not by dream. And I found a megalithic site just outside of Luxor, and it was off the beaten track. It was known to Egyptologists, but it wasn't known to any of the tourist guides. I've already done episodes on 2 of those. As for my perspective on Egypt, I have historic explanations for these places that differ greatly to the views of the Egyptologists. My dream regressions have placed me at the range of eras for Egypt, from the time that it was first set up as a university called Kem, through to the building of the pyramids, the deluge, the various stages of trying to get humanity back on its feet again, and when the dynastic Egyptians started to take over the sites that we'd abandoned. So I've seen the full range when it comes to Egypt. And I have massive respect for the dynastic Egyptians and what they achieved. It's just some of those amazing things that are credited to them are not actually their handiwork. They just adopted it and made it their own, and often did some very significant renovations, which in its own right was a very large project, very impressive, and truly admirable. Looking at all these aspects of her and me, it certainly looks to me like there's a lot of similarity. I even love cats, and I have several at home with me, as well as one particular cat that I return to in my dreams. So, I now have the nickname of Omm Sety. It started after it was assumed that I was the mother of the tour guide I was with. The tour guide was Omm Sety, who you may have heard of. He's quite well known on YouTube, and he's a wonderful guide. And I felt very honoured to be thought of as his mother. I am the right age, so I thought it was a great compliment. But the reason that I jokingly got that nickname was that I'd found some interesting things on various sites. And combine that with the fact that Omm also means mum, so that's how I kind of got the nickname, Omm Sety. So I'm thinking it's actually quite a good match to me, and it's not too much of a stretch in ability between Omm Sety and Omm Sety, i.e. me. So thank you, Omm Sety, for making the comparison and being such an amazing guide for me while I was in Egypt. I did have 2 guides, one for the earlier part of my trip, and he was amazing as well, so I was very fortunate. Anyway, so that is it on my comparisons. So thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed it, please do remember to subscribe, because it does make a difference, and also you won't miss out on the episodes that are going to be coming out fairly soon, and I really do appreciate it as well. Okay, thank you everyone, and I'll catch you next time.